So we're going to do all the different tests that will be on the final. That's what I want to put out here in video format. I might also chop up this video just to go through all the different types of tests. But the first thing we want to do is our 4 steps for testing. So let's write down our 4 steps. I think I'm going to write it here in big words. So let's look at our 4 steps for testing. Our 4 steps will always be the following. So please, if you're in the chat, ask questions. I already see there's one person in the chat. So anyone who wants to ask questions, ask those questions. The first thing we're going to cover today is the 4 steps to a test. So we have 4 different steps we need to make sure we do for each one of these tests. So as we do these tests today, we're going to look at the 4 different steps. Step 1, we're going to write out the null and alternative hypothesis. So we need to make sure we can do this for each one of these tests. Write the null and write the alternative. So I'm going to keep these nice and neat. We'll try to put them all to one line here. Write out that null and alternative hypothesis. Step 2, perform the calculation for the t, z, or chi-square. This is where we check the conditions because certain tests have conditions. So we'll perform the calculation for the t, for the z, or for the chi-squared. We're going to find the test statistic. So that's what step 2 is find the test statistic. So once you find that, I wish we had everyone in chat today because I'd ask my big questions. Once we have the test statistic, what will we do? Because every time we get a test statistic, let's see, I can probably draw today. I can draw. Once we get this test statistic, we are going to then find, like the red line is the test statistic. So we find, let's say it's a t-score and we're doing a greater than test. From that, we then find the what? Maybe we'll see some people in chat answering questions. But from the test statistic, we will then find, and it's that area under the curve. Oh, Morgan, great answer. Morgan, you are right. It is, it is the p-value right there. We will find the p-value for the test. Make sure to shade according to the alternative hypothesis. So key stuff right there. We will shade. Nice job, Julio. Great job. We find the p-value. That's what we do for our 3rd step right there. Once we get past step 3, and this is for all of our steps, all of our tests, what will we do next? Step number 4, once we have this p-value, we will then do what? Because we're going to do all 4 tests for the test today. Once we have that p-value, we will do what? And let's look at the 2 scenarios we can get with a p-value. Our 2 scenarios will be a low p-value or a high p-value. So we can have a low p-value. You don't want to go that way. We can have a low p-value or a high p-value. How does that work out? Well, the way it would look visually is, generally speaking, these are the extremes. We can often have a p-value, and let's just do a right-tailed test that maybe looks like that, or a p-value that looks like this. So I'm going to shade the area under the curve right there, and I'm going to shade the area under the curve right here. So once we find the t or the z, which is where the line is at, and apparently we're doing a right-tailed test for just this theoretical problem we're doing right here, we will then shade the area under the curve to the right, to the left, or both sides. More on that as we go through testing. But what we have right here is the p-value. From here, we will do one of 2 things. We will either reject or fail to reject the null. So state your conclusion. Reject / fail to reject. These are the only 2 options. Do this in context of the problem. I'm going to put an exclamation point right there just to make it clear. Especially for your project you're working on. If you're working on the project, you'll notice you need to talk about the mean engine life. And so we'd say we have evidence that the mean engine life is greater than 3,500, or we did not find evidence that the mean engine life is greater than 3,500. We still conclude that it is equal to 3,500. So that is what we have going on right here, is we are trying to talk about it in context. You can do many different types of tests, and we'll be talking about that today. But these are the 4 steps. And as we work any one of these problems, I'm simply going to come back to these 4 steps here, and we're going to look at each one of these.